Right, so this is my oral history project, and I am interviewing.
Regan. Yeah, I went on the trip last year. I was a participant in the community health team last year.
And she's, what year are you?
I'm a 17.
17, yeah. So a few questions kind of to start off with this interview. So you went on the CH team.
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide to apply to CCESP, and like also why Nicaragua and why the community health team?
So I applied to CCSP because first of all, I'm always really intrigued by global health opportunities. So when I get blitzes that have global health or something like that, it always piques my interest. But I actually went to Peru the previous year, and I did a MedLife trip, and not to speak poorly about MedLife, but I had quite a few issues with just their approach to global development, and I felt like it was almost the perfect epitome of a volunteerism experience. So I kind of left with a bad taste in my mouth. Not that I didn't have a great experience, and not that I didn't really love exploring the city and meeting the people of Peru. I just didn't feel like I was making a real contribution. So I kind of left that experience with a negative view of global health trips and service trips and the whole white savior complex. But then I went to the CCSP info session, and some of the things that they spoke about and the things that they highlighted spoke to those very concerns that I had. So the person who was giving the presentation would say things like, you know, we totally acknowledge the fact that people go on these kinds of trips thinking that they, you know, are doing someone a favor, or they're, you know, imposing their own beliefs on this other system, this other belief system and this other culture, and saying that we do it right, here's how we do it, here's how you can do it like we do it. And they acknowledged that, and not only did they acknowledge that that was something that happened, but they refuted it, and they said, you know what, that's not our mission, that's not why we're doing this. We're doing this to have a cross-cultural exchange. We're doing this to help people, help the people that we're going to meet with initiatives that they've already established, and help them develop sustainable projects that have longevity, that last far beyond the 2 weeks that we're going to be there. And so for that and a host of other reasons, I decided to apply and give it a chance and at least learn more about it, and I'm really, really glad I did. I'll stop talking now.
Awesome, sweet. So have you done any previous volunteering abroad besides Nicaragua? Well, you talked about
Peru.
MedLife.
Yeah, so I did MedLife, and I actually am from Shanghai, so I grew up in Asia, and my high school was an embassy school, so it was an international school, but they highlighted a lot of service trips. So one of the biggest clubs and the most popular thing to do in high school was to go on Habitat for Humanity builds during spring break. So I actually went on 3 Habitat for Humanity builds, one in Nepal, one in Mongolia, and one in Cambodia. Totally similar experience to Peru. I felt like I was there to play and kind of have a little vacation and then build houses on the side, which was, at the time, I was very naive, and to me that felt like I was using my spring break to do something helpful to people, and I wasn't just going to Thailand and sitting on a beach, I was building a house. But then after some reflection, I realized I was building a house that the locals could have built in half the time, better and more efficiently. They were almost just accommodating us because we were just on our little tourist trip and wanted to build houses and feel good about ourselves. So at the time, I thought it was really important, and now after CCSP and after taking LAX 20, I realized, in retrospect, how problematic some of those things are. But yes, so to answer your question, I have done a lot of different kinds of service trips.
And how do you feel like those service trips have helped you with, I guess, going to, traveling abroad, for Nicaragua for this trip?
What do you mean, helped me in what way?
Were there any similarities? Because I know you talked about how they were different.
Yeah.
How this one was more not very. You didn't really learn a lot. It was more yeah. You talked about that. But were there any other maybe similarities?
Okay. I think that one thing that was helpful, I didn't really feel culture shock in a big way when I went to Nicaragua. Because, growing up abroad, I've seen a lot of places and been exposed to a lot of, trying situations and a lot of uncomfortable situations. And I've become pretty attuned to how to adjust and how to be culturally sensitive. and how to appreciate another culture without disrespecting it, how to appreciate another culture while holding firm to my own beliefs. And I think those are all skills that I've learned from like traveling abroad and from doing service trips like I had done in high school. And besides that, just from living in China and being an expat and being a minority and being in another culture that's not my own, but being in it for such a long time and in such a big way that it kind of I kind of understand it and appreciate it in a deeper way.
Nice.
And that was helpful in Nicaragua because obviously going to a new place and you're not really going to be helpful if you're, in culture shock and you're not, you're kind of just nervous or you're like worried about the food or you're worried about where you're going to sleep and you're concerned about your comfort. You can't really be a helpful person to help in the clinic if you're not able to adjust yourself. So I think that's important.
Okay, and kind of going off of that, how was not necessarily culture shock, but language? Did you know Spanish before that trip? Or?
So I knew Spanish in a very rudimentary form, I guess. I'm much better now after the trip, and I also did an LSA last winter after Nicaragua. But my Spanish was not great. I tried really hard. You can ask all the translators when you see them again, remind them of me, and they'll be like, oh yeah, she would always try to learn the words and try to speak, but she was awful. But I wasn't too worried about it because I spent most of my time with the kids anyway, so my Spanish level is about the level of a 4-year-old kid, so it pretty much worked out, and I had a lot of fun talking to the translators like Hugo and everyone and Alberto and learning from them, and they'd teach me slang and I'd forget it in 5 minutes, but it was fun, and it was actually really great inspiration to become better at Spanish, and I worked a lot harder on my LSA than I probably would have otherwise because I was like, this is something that I want to learn how to do and I want to be able to go back and be able to communicate in a bigger way and share more profound ideas. So I definitely couldn't do that.
So you feel like your Spanish has definitely improved since then?
Yeah, it has improved. A combination of being on that trip and being immersed in Spanish for those few weeks, and then my LSA obviously helped quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay. So what was your favorite part about the trip? What was the hardest?
Oh, that's such a hard question.
Yeah.
I think the entire trip was quite hard, and I was really happy. It sounds weird, but I was so thrilled at how difficult it was, mostly because my previous experiences, as I've shared a little bit, were just cushy. They were like, here, stay in this nice hotel, and for half the day you'll do some hard work that's not that hard, but this was pretty much the real deal. We were staying in mosquito nets. We were eating rice and beans every day, which was great. It was delicious, but it's we were eating what the people there were eating. We weren't staying in a nice hotel while we were we weren't eating nice food and staying in a 5-star hotel and then for half the day going to the village. We were living with the people, and I think that was one of the coolest parts. Because when we'd walk home with the kids we were playing with. We were on the way, and our house or the area that we were staying was right near where all the kids would live, so we'd play soccer with them in the afternoons, or they'd come over and we'd be like, you can't really be in here, but secretly we were really happy that they'd want to come play. So that was really fun. I think my favorite part was I made some really adorable friends, and anyone on the trip last year will speak to this. I think my role on the trip was just playing and entertaining the kids so that the parents could get seen by a doctor and have a serious moment in the clinic. I think at the time I felt like it was a little bit trivial. I was like, okay, I can't speak Spanish, so Miguel was the one explaining to people their condition and explaining how to take the medicine and what medicine they need to take, and that seemed really important. It was life-changing. And meanwhile I'm playing tag and giving out toothbrushes, and it felt at the time pretty trivial, but looking back I realized that for those 20-30 minutes that I was playing with the kids, the parents didn't have to worry about their child, and they could have those moments with the doctor to candidly express what was going on and have enough mental capacity to understand what's going on with their health and what they need to do to make themselves better. And having a kid on your arm and a little child tugging at your leg while you're trying to get a diagnosis is really stressful. And so I think while Lauren and I may not have been the most helpful in terms of the medical side, we were definitely good at playing and entertaining with the kids, and it was also so much fun. It was so cute. They were adorable. And my favorite part was just the relationships I was able to make with those little guys, and talking to them about school and what their favorite subjects were, and encouraging them to keep pursuing the things that they were interested in. And I mean, that was the extent of my Spanish, but it was really fun, and I think we
That's
made
awesome.
we had a good influence on them, and like left a good impression. So that was fun.
That's really good.
It was amazing.
So, so you told me that you would, you would like to go on this trip again, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you do, what would you do differently if you went again?
Well, for one, I think I would go more informed. I would have more of an idea of what to expect, and I think that would allow me to prepare more in terms of, especially language. I would love to go again with a better grasp on Spanish, so I would be able to have those conversations. I was always so envious of Miguel and the fluent Spanish speakers who were able to talk to even just the translators about the political system in Nicaragua and like whether or not they liked the president or how they felt that the regime was doing in terms of like helping with development in these smaller places and what they thought about what Bridges to Community was doing and like whether they thought it was helpful. And I mean, I had some of those conversations in English, but I think to be able to talk to the translators and especially the community members candidly about their life experience in their own language, that would be just incredible. And I think with my Spanish that I have now, like maybe not that level, but definitely could go back and have better conversations and more meaningful ones. So that would be one thing that I'm really excited to do. And I also just feel like 2 weeks is not a long time. It feels long when you're in the middle of it. You're like, oh my gosh, I've been here forever. I just want to like see my dog or whatever. But it's not a long time, and I feel like I left, and I felt like there was some things that were left unfinished. Like I wish I could stay longer and continue these relationships. I wish I could stay longer and check up on the lady with the breast tumor and like see how she's doing, or see more patients, or just even hand out more toothbrushes. I just felt like there was a lot of members of the community that we weren't able to touch. And I would just love to be back there to finish what we started. And honestly, I left there wanting to get a Fulbright and move to Nicaragua and do research. Like, it is such an impactful, amazing experience. And, like, the people there are so kind-hearted and so well-meaning and so welcoming. And they look at these, like, random white people coming from Dartmouth, and they're like, you know what? You're coming with great intentions, and we're going to let you help us, but it's because we're not imposing anything on them. It's not like subtle imperialism. We're not like, here, look at this technology we have, start using it. It's like, no, let me help you understand what you need and help you with the things that you've already started. So having a conversation, I just remembered this, but we had this conversation with all the local elders, so like all the elders of the various communities surrounding where we were, got together one afternoon, and we had this like sort of seminar-ish thing where we would talk about global health, like health problems, like anything from AIDS to malaria to reproductive health to how to prevent disease. And we didn't take over the conversation as much as probe them to start the conversation. So the fluent Spanish speakers, like Karina, she would say something like, so what is your understanding of malaria prevention? Or what do you guys do when XYZ condition happens? Or how do you treat this certain condition or this certain affliction? And instead of saying like, this is how you treat malaria, they were saying, why don't you guys share your ideas? What does your village do about this? Like, what does your community have to say about this? And I just really loved the structure of that, because it felt like we were truly just igniting a conversation that would continue long after we were gone. Instead of just telling them, like, here's a little slideshow about, like, how malaria is contracted and here's how you fix it. It was like, no, like, you guys have, like, a long-standing history of how you deal with health. And, like, it's completely disrespectful for us to come in and say, like, you're wrong, sorry, to your, like, religious, like, beliefs and to your culture, that this is how you deal with it. That's wrong. Like, we're from America, we have all this technology, we have all of this innovation. In fact, we know how to do it right. But I think that while, as true as that may be, maybe we do cure malaria better, but that doesn't mean that we can disrespect the cultural, like, traditions that they have. So I think the coolest thing about that was that it was a very casual conversation, and we were able to just have them share ideas and learn from each other, which was amazing. And then we'd contribute to the conversation too and be like, oh, in America we do it like this, or how would you guys feel about, like, thinking about this? Instead of, it just was a totally a similar message I think was relayed, but just in such a different way that it had a different impact, I think, and it was more long lasting than just a PowerPoint would have been, which I think was cool. And I hope to this day that those elders are still talking about it together, and that conversation is still still open, and that they're still sharing ideas. I think that was really 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 cool for me to see.
No, yeah, I also feel like that's a very active way to keep talking about something. Yeah, rather than just presenting it.
Absolutely.
All right. Last question. How has CCESP shaped your future in terms of like what you want to do, possibly?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I always have been really interested in global health, and I think that's probably one of the most important things to me. Growing up in China, I have always cared really deeply about like orphan care and like healthcare in China, because it's just so subpar, and I think that kind of passion it just like transferred to all aspects. So for me, Dartmouth has given me a lot of opportunities to travel to Latin and South America, which I'd never had exposure to before. But that's just reaffirming to me that like global health is so important, and it doesn't matter where it is. I mean, I obviously had a bias towards China because I was from China, but I'm realizing that like I care so deeply about like global health equity in all places. So that's one thing that opened my mind to like a whole 2 more continents worth of people that matter, that have amazing ideas and stories to share. And so that to me was one thing that CCSP and my trip to Peru honestly has opened my mind to. And I think, if anything, CCSP has shown me what needs to be done. It's kind of depressing, but more about like the problems that need to be addressed and what the work that needs to be continually done. It didn't feel conclusive. It felt like a work in progress. It actually felt like a drop in the ocean, I guess. I felt like the beginning of a massive mission, and I think that it's just like inspired me to continue pursuing these goals, and to continue learning and getting myself in a position where I would be able to help with organizations like Bridges Community in a bigger way. So whether that's like from a platform, from a policy standpoint, or from working at a high level in an NGO, or working in finance and working for pro bono, I have no idea what it's going to be, but it's just inspired me to like keep pursuing my goals and eventually make a bigger change. Yeah. I guess that's what I would say to that.
All right, that's awesome. All right, well, those are all the questions. Thank you so much for
no problem.
coming to interview with me. All right.